Hosted by you/responsible_log_5039. My M30 girlfriend, F28, is extremely dismissive avoidant, and it's been causing a lot of issues in our relationship. She's in therapy, but that is mostly focused on managing her OCD and related eating disorder. She has trouble expressing her emotions and needs and struggles with communication, commitment, and compromise as a result. We've been dating for a little over a year. Before me, her longest relationship lasted less than 2 months. She usually shuts down and runs from relationships if she feels smothered, if her partner lets her down, or if she feels criticized. It doesn't take much for this to happen. She does recognize this, and she's trying to work on it, but it's hard on both of us. Both of us are big theater nerds. A few months ago, we took a trip to a city about 2 hours from us to visit her grandparents, and I got to meet her best friends from college for the first time. While there, we went to a show with her friends. I honestly had a great time. Her grandparents love me, and I got along really well with her friends. There was another show coming up in a few months that both of us have connections to. It was the first musical she ever saw with her grandparents, and I worked on a production of it in high school. I asked my girlfriend if we could go. I even offered to bring her grandparents and treat them to a nice night out. They don't get to go out much anymore, or we could go with her college friends. I was immediately shut down. She said she didn't really like that show, which she had mentioned before, and didn't want to see it again. Fine, no big deal. That show was last weekend. Not sure if this is relevant yet, feel free to skip this paragraph. We kind of had a fight on Saturday. I was about 15 minutes late picking her up to hang out at a brewery, and she felt really let down. She's broken up with other people for similar reasons and gave me the silent treatment all day. Eventually, I got her to open up, we apologized to each other, and ended up having a decent evening at home. The next morning, she said she didn't feel great and wanted to go home to rest. I drove her home and asked if she needed me to stay with her to take care of her or anything. She said no, she just wanted a quiet day to herself. I told her to let me know if she needed anything and then headed home. I didn't hear from her all day. Even when she's relaxing, we're usually trading memes and Snapchats of our cats, but she wasn't even opening my messages. Earlier that week, she had a migraine so bad that I had to take her to the emergency room, and her sister just had a baby who's been having some health problems. By late afternoon, I started to get really worried that something was wrong, so I decided to check her location on Find My. She wasn't at home. She wasn't even in our city. She was just leaving a restaurant and walking to the theater to see the show I really wanted to see. I assumed she was with her friends again, as the restaurant is a favorite of theirs. It's a nicer restaurant where they would have needed a reservation, and the show is a popular one. Everything would have had to be planned well in advance. I'm not worried about her cheating or anything. Her friends are married to each other, and she wouldn't be going with anyone else except maybe her grandparents. I'm just so hurt over everything. I really wouldn't have minded if she had told me she already had plans to go to the show with her friends. I just don't understand why she lied to me about not being willing to go, and why she lied to hide the fact that she was going. I think she just didn't want to explain that she wanted to go with her friends and without me. I don't know how to bring this up to her. She's very sensitive to criticism, and even though I'm hurt, not mad, she'll probably take it as an attack. She also doesn't really like me expressing my feelings to her in general and tends to shut down and withdraw. I'm worried that if I bring this up, she'll just break up and leave to avoid the conversation. She's threatened to do that before over much smaller issues. How can I bring this up without scaring her off? Update 1 month later. I wanted to thank everyone for their input on my last post. I know it's a bit cliche, but I wasn't expecting it to get so much attention. Even the harsher comments helped me get a better grasp on the situation. I wasn't going to bother posting an update, but a few people have messaged me, so I figured I'd finally write this out. Spoiler, it's not a good ending. I spent a lot of time thinking about what to do. I made my post on Monday, and we had a date planned for Wednesday. I decided I would bring it up then. On Tuesday, she was having a bad day at work, but she didn't really let me know. She texted me about an email her jerk of a boss sent her, and I thought my response was appropriately supportive and validating, basically telling the guy off and letting her know she was right to be frustrated. I got a curt, "Is that all you took from that?" in response. I probably should have thought a bit more, but I was dealing with my own work issues and a migraine, so I lazily doubled down on my first response, again reiterating that she had every right to be angry. She didn't reply. I didn't double text, but I did reach out via Snapchat and Instagram messages to see if she'd respond there. She didn't open any of my messages. Since I'm always trying to make excuses for her, I assumed she was busy and would respond when she had time. If you couldn't tell from the first post, my girlfriend really struggles with communication. Finally, 4 hours later, she responded by saying that she doesn't feel emotionally supported and needs some space to think about the future of our relationship. I was super confused and asked what was wrong. Her response was, "I just had a really crappy day and you didn't even bother to call me." I kind of snapped at that. I asked why she didn't respond to any of my messages, or why she couldn't have said something like, "Hey, I had a really bad day at work and need to hear your voice." I pointed out that she never asks me for emotional support, she just acts out until I figure out what she needs, or until she gets frustrated and gives me the silent treatment. She replied, "I didn't respond because it wouldn't have mattered. I cannot always be the one putting in the work." I explained, for what felt like the 1000th time, that I can't read her mind, She needs to communicate her needs. She's intentionally avoiding the work by refusing to open up and ask for help. I understand that's hard for her, but I can't make up for that on my end. I pointed out that I didn't realize she was having an awful day. I just thought she was dealing with regular work issues. She never tried to clarify how she was feeling or what she needed. She said, "I've been saying I need more effort from you for months, and nothing has changed. This is the exact argument I didn't want to have, and you pushed it." I responded that I desperately want to support her, but she isn't giving me anything to work with. I gave her the space she asked for and told her I love her. The next morning, she asked if she could come over after work to talk. After I confirmed, she went back to giving me the silent treatment. Soon after, I found myself blocked on Snapchat and Instagram. Weirdly enough, it was this that finally made me realize how badly I'd been treated. I was so starved for emotional and non-sexual physical intimacy. She doesn't even like holding hands, let alone cuddling, and I was an anxious mess from constantly walking on eggshells. But I'm stubborn. I loved her, really wanted things to work, and was still willing to talk things out. She's pulled a similar stunt before, and we ended up staying together. She finally came over. We started by going over our communication issues. Her main point was that she feels with a compatible partner, everything should come naturally, including knowing when your partner needs something without having to ask. She explained that she gets overwhelmed and shuts down, and asking for help is very overwhelming for her. It goes against her need to feel independent and self-sufficient, and it feeds her fear of falling into a toxic, codependent relationship like her parents. So she feels this is an appropriate expectation. I explained that she's asking me to read her mind, that she's putting all the emotional labor on me, and that this isn't a realistic or fair expectation. She started to change the subject, which is something she often does when she's uncomfortable with a conversation. We jumped around to various issues in our relationship. She randomly said that she doesn't feel like she really knows me. I asked her what she meant by that, and she said she never knows what I'm thinking or feeling and that I'm too closed off, which is all false and definitely felt like projection on her part. This hit on a deep insecurity, that she didn't actually care enough about me to try to get to know me. She barely engaged with my interests and hobbies, rarely asked me questions about myself, and when she did, they were usually negative. On the other hand, I made all the effort to learn about the things she cared about. She then brought up that we've been dating for a year but have no plans to move in together. Again, this hit on a major insecurity of mine. I had been trying to bring this up for months. I even asked her directly when she was having issues at her place and thinking about moving. This was in late July, around our 1-year anniversary. On the other hand, she gave me different answers every time I asked what she wanted for her or our future, if she didn't try to change the subject instead. She's never brought up our future on her own. I was always the one initiating those conversations. I made it clear that the only reason we don't have future plans is because she doesn't seem to want to make them yet. I also said there's nothing wrong with that, but she needs to let me know if she's not ready for that step. Pointing all of this out to her made her go quiet, not silent treatment quiet, but the kind of quiet where, when things get too intense for her, she starts to shut down and withdraw. It took a few minutes for her to come out of it. Once she did, I explained that I felt like I was the only one really putting effort into our relationship. She asked me what I seriously wanted. I began in a kind of roundabout way, I guess. I explained that 6 years ago, I had to end an engagement with my fiancée after she became an abusive alcoholic, and then spent the next few years working 80+ hours a week at a job I hated while watching my dad slowly die, all things she already knew. What I was going to say next was that after going through that, I wanted to get a job that was better for my mental health, which I succeeded in, and I wanted to find my person. Instead, I got cut off. She said maybe I started dating too soon after my dad's passing. We started dating about 9 months later. This really threw me off, and it took me a minute to recover. Before I could continue, she said that she just doesn't feel our communication styles are compatible. I asked her if she seriously thinks she has good communication skills, and she said she feels like she does. I finally brought up the show. I told her I knew she went without me and explained how I found out, and my justification for checking her location. This visibly shocked her, and she shut down again. I asked why she lied to me, twice. No answer. I asked if she was cheating on me. She said no, that she went with her college friends. She eventually confirmed that this had been planned before I even asked to go. As I suspected, she admitted she didn't want to go to avoid what she felt would be an uncomfortable conversation. I asked her if she thought that was okay. She said yes, explaining that she was worried if she told the truth, I'd push her to let me go with them. I asked if I've ever pressured her into doing something she didn't want to do. She said yes, mentioning that I asked to watch movies she doesn't like over and over. This hit a sore spot for me. I rarely got to pick what we watched, and she seemed to intentionally avoid movies that were important to me. Over Christmas, I asked to watch Home Alone to continue a tradition I had with my dad. I wanted her to be there with me for support, but she refused and found every way to invalidate my feelings. I asked if I had ever pressured her outside of asking to watch a few of my favorite movies. She said no. I asked if I had done anything to make her feel unsafe opening up to me about any of this. She said no, but explained that she's just not the type to open up like that to anyone except her sister. I asked how she expects to have a serious relationship with someone if she won't open up to them. She said she feels like the right person will just make it easy for her. I then asked if she felt she needed to work on herself to be a better partner. She said no, because she doesn't really want to be a partner anymore. She added that our relationship was adding so much stress to her life, to the point that it was affecting her job and eating disorder recovery, though I'm not sure how true this is, as she's been doing really well with both. I asked where the stress in our relationship was coming from for her, and she said it was from the constant obligations and me constantly asking for more from her. I brought up how much work I've put into this relationship. I chauffeured her around for 2 months while her car was in the shop, visited her in the hospital every day, then slept on her couch and took care of her for a week while she recovered from surgery. I've paid for the vast majority of our dates, given her money when she overdrew her bank account, helped her move on short notice, and always showed up for her when she asked, and plenty of times when she didn't. I've also tried to model good relationship behavior, and it's exhausting and heartbreaking to not have that effort reciprocated. Instead, I rarely got to plan dates or pick the movies/shows we watched because she refused to compromise. I put in all this effort trying to open up to her and to get her to open up to me. The few times I asked for her emotional support, even for small things like watching Home Alone with me, she refused. She didn't take any interest in my hobbies, even those we had in common. We had next to no emotional intimacy, and I constantly had to forgive her for blowing up at me over small things, giving me the silent treatment, or lying to me, while I always admitted when I was wrong and showed that I was working to grow with our relationship. I've been giving so much without getting anything in return, and I don't feel like my expectations were unrealistic at all. I was asking for the bare minimum. My needs weren't being met. She once again said that she didn't think our communication styles were compatible. I guess this was the hill she wanted to die on to end our relationship. I told her that I didn't want to end things and was still willing to work on us. I even offered to get us a relationship counselor, but she refused. She said she was exhausted and couldn't do this anymore. By that point, I was exhausted too, and agreed to end things. She never cried or showed much emotion during the whole conversation. She just alternated between being cold and looking uncomfortable. By the end, I was kind of a mess, though I never raised my voice or got angry. About a week later, I wasn't doing great. I made the mistake of getting drunk alone at home and then made the horrible mistake of trying to text her. I asked if she'd thought about us and if she was willing to talk. She hit me with, "Don't contact me. It's not coming across to you, so I'm being explicit. I want nothing from you except to never hear from you or see you again. I'm blocking your number. Contact me again, and I'll be getting a restraining order. Go get some help and leave me alone." So, that was great. I haven't been doing great. Between how exhausting everything was and the fact that this relationship and breakup managed to hit most of my relationship insecurities, I've been kind of a mess. It's been rough realizing how I hardly ever felt appreciated, valued, respected, or prioritized throughout our relationship, and how I never really felt like she saw me as a partner or us as a team. I've realized that I made a lot of excuses for her, given her childhood trauma and the fact that this was her first attempt at a serious relationship. A lot of her points about not knowing me or us not having plans for the future felt really gaslighty, and it's messed with my head a lot. That, combined with the constant nitpicking, kind of destroyed my self-esteem. Honestly, I felt better after breaking things off with my ex-fiancé than I do after this breakup. Oh well, I guess I have a lot of work to do on myself. I'm sorry that this probably wasn't a satisfying ending.